Hey, what's going on, Archons? Welcome to the second episode of Card Looks, where I dive into 3 cards from a specific house using the great tool of Card Gallery by Archon Arcana. A great resource if you are not familiar, which I hope you are if you're listening to me, because it's been mentioned many times on many of the media that I have been a part of. So today we're diving into House Sanctum. And I got 3 cards today, 1 action, 1 artifact, and 1 creature, visiting a couple different sets. One is in a few sets, actually. So to kick things off, I'm going to start with the artifact, which has spanned a few sets. And the artifact is Eye of Judgment. So it was in AOA and also in Mass Mutation. And Eye of Judgment is an artifact with an action ability that reads, purge a creature from a discard pile, with the amazing flavor text, those with nothing to hide have nothing to fear. So why did I choose this card? Well, I think the way the game is right now, there's a lot of utility from a card that you can purge a creature from. And there's combo potential out there that exists, and you can remove a piece of the combo being a creature. And not to mention, there's also a lot of different things that exist, like removing Infernus targets from your own deck, such as I believe you got some things in what am my mind's drawing a blank here, in Untamed, because of things like Gloriana's Attendance, things of that nature that you don't really want to have around, for example. So, you know, those Gloriana Attendants putting a lot of Ember Pips on things. Your creatures get more Ember Pips. It's a way to remove those targets if you don't want to recur them, which is really nice. And it also helps you get the end game, so you can tidy up your discard so that if they do have an Infernus coming, they don't have as many targets to really get that oomph. So it's really nice in that regard. What else do I like about this? Oh, yes, and then obviously you can take any value targets out of your opponents, like Time Traveler. Easy decision with Eye of Judgment, really good for that. I just like the versatility of this card, and the fact that it's an artifact, that means it stays on the board and you just use it when you need to call Sanctum, etc., etc. So it's really good in that regard. So I'm a fan of Eye of Judgment. I think it's a neat card. Next, we're going to move into the action category of this, and we're going to visit the card known as Purify. Now, for those of you who don't know, I actually like to choose cards that are not obvious, like heavy hitters. I'm going to choose something that's a little bit more under the radar, or has an interesting interaction that I've come to, I guess, realize and kind of really take to heart lately. But this card, I think, falls on the lesser of the sides here, and that is Purify from Mass Mutations. It's an action card with an Ember Pip that reads, purge a mutant creature. If you do, discard cards from the top of its controller's deck until you discard a non-mutant creature or run out of cards. If you discard a non-mutant creature this way, put it into play under its owner's control. So I have a couple ways this can be used. If you're using it on your opponent, it's very straightforward. Remove a problem creature in Mass Mutation, or potentially like a Skippy from another set, and then you cause the deck to cycle and remove cards, such as when I say remove cards, like get cards that cannot be drawn are now in the discard, and then you can do things like, oh, what do you know? Use Eye of Judgment and purge one of those cards that just went there. So that gives you an option. Obviously, the non-mutant factor takes into play, but just saying you're creating issues in that way for your opponent. You may get rid of some action cards that they're looking for. They're digging for too much to protect, you know, things of that nature. So it creates that element of flexibility of a secondary nature with this card. Now, I think the more interesting interactions actually occur when you're using it on yourself. Why do you say this? Use it on yourself. Yes, that's correct. Purge a mutant creature. But you're saying, coach, why would you purge your own mutant creature? Well, folks, I'll tell you why. Because there's a lot of Mass Mutation decks out there that have things like Gloriana's Attendants, or literally almost any of the Shadows mutants that are not that exciting. Like, there is a lot of them. You have ones that just give damage pips and then do nothing apart from that. Mutant Cut Purse, I'm looking at you. So you can get rid of those so you don't have these vanilla creatures, and then you can actually cycle a little bit better as a result. And then you can maybe pull out a non-mutant creature that can just be more value on the board. It also allows you to cycle your deck if you're getting to a point where you know you got some tools in the discard and you need to get them back for later on in the game. Boom, get that happening faster. Then it also has the interesting thing of the low mutant count. So if you have a low mutant creature count, a low mutant creature count, then you're also going to get another creature faster, so you maybe won't go through that. But I really like it as a way to get rid of those Gloriana's Attendants and those Shadows creatures. I think that creates an interesting opportunity just to get those things that once they've given their kind of pips as enhancements, they're not really going to have as much value on the board. Especially if you have something like the KeyFrog Savage Clash combo, the Gloriana's Attendants can really muck that up on your end. So it provides just a nice little bit of options in that regard. So not a great card. It's going to be situational. It comes into play, but I think those instances make it kind of interesting as something to look as a possibility. So now, lastly, we have a fun card that I really, really like that comes from Dark Tidings, and that is... where is it? Here it is. It is called Senechel Sargueza, and it is a 6 power, 2 armor Spirit Knight from Dark Tidings that says, after a player raises the tide, a creature they control captures 2 from their opponent. Now, this card is fantastic. It is Ember Control, but it also is universal Ember Control, meaning either you or your opponent can take advantage of it. So as a result, you need to be very aware of your tide control with this. And I think this card is so interesting because you may have to make decisions where you're at a point where you realize you're going to go and check. You're not going to go above 8. So what do? You got to make sure you don't take the tide. You leave your opponent with the tide. So that way it gives you the opportunity to allow Senechel Sargueza to not be used against you. And then it also gives you the opportunity to pull it back for when your opponent just finishes their turn. This one's far more straightforward, but it's the situation of being aware of the tide and your check situation and not allowing your opponent to be able to pull the tide to pull you off check, unless you have some sort of more nefarious plan which involves them taking those chains to do so, and you want to entice them to do that. Well, then maybe that's something else. But I think it's just a really neat card with some really cool decision space, and the fact that it's going to take 8 damage to get this thing off the board, it can provide some really, really nice interactions within the game. So that's going to do it for this week. I'm going to try not to do back-to-back houses, and even hopefully, unless I'm inspired by certain cards, try and go through all the houses before I cycle back to one I've already done before. So hope you're all enjoying this. Please continue to give feedback on your thoughts, and you have some thoughts on the cards that I've discussed today. I'd love to hear your takes as well. So thanks so much, everyone, and as always, may your Ember never be stolen and your keys forged promptly. Have a good one.